This continues the lecture on multiplication of polynomials on section R3. The problem that you see listed here at the top of the page is the one that I just asked you to work. Hopefully you got the same answer that's listed here. If you would, pull out page 19 of your textbook and look at example 5. You might want to pause the video here while you get that page turned to in your textbook. If you look at that example in the textbook, if you see line 2 at the top of your page right here, where it says negative 3x to the second y plus 2y, in your textbook you'll see that written as 2y minus 3x to the second, as we have listed right here. The normal way that we write that is in alphabetical order with the variable x listed before the y. So the way that we have it listed in here on our problem is the normal way that we would have it listed. For some reason your textbook tried to work it a little bit differently. If you look at that example 5 in the textbook, you'll see that here's our multiplication here by 2y. And if you look in the textbook, that'll be down here on the bottom. So in other words, these two lines that you see right here are reversed in your textbook. And take a look at them, and they are exactly the same terms, just listed in a different kind of order. So for some reason your textbook chose to write the two terms in not the typical order, but realize that the answer is still the same on them. Also, another one thing I'd like you to take a look at on this answer is the way that we have our problems listed. Is you'll see that when you have terms that you're multiplying together, most of the time when they line up, they'll match the terms that are directly above them. So that'll help give you a clue when you're trying to get one answer and it's going below another one. Look and see if it should match up or not. That'll give you a big clue as to what those answers should be. Also, if you take a look in the textbook, you'll see it written out in your textbook on page 19, written out in a linear manner, the same problem that we have here on example 5. And it's written out immediately after it says solution we have on page 19. Some of you may have had this in algebra class before, where you had to write it out in a linear fashion going all the way across your page. I know that I did when I was in high school. And then what you had to do is go ahead and match up terms that were alike. And what I normally did is I wrote a check mark above them and then listed the ones. So if you're a person who likes to write them out in this linear fashion and doesn't understand the long multiplication, or doesn't want to understand it and continue doing it the same way that you have previously, that's totally great. Either way is perfectly fine. Either the way that you've always done it, written it out in the linear manner, or written it out or write it out here in the long fashion, and then go ahead and add up like terms together. Use the preference, whichever one is easiest for you. From my experience, the one that is typically easiest for somebody who hasn't had it before is doing the long multiplication. The reason for that is, going back to page 2, if you look at the multiplications that we have here, 3 things times 3 things, when you add up the terms that have been multiplied here, the like terms, when you multiply them, are lined up in the right manner for you, and you don't have to go back and look for those ones that match up. So as you're going across here, we have a number, an x term, an x to the second. The second line has an x to the second, and an x to the third. The last line here has x to the second, x to the third, x to the fourth. So they kind of match up, and it helps you as you do the long multiplication. But again, use the method of doing the multiplication that is easiest for you. I don't want to force you into doing it one way or another, as long as you pick a method and that method works for you. The third method that we're going to talk about is a special case, and that method is called FOIL. The acronym FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last. So we have an expression here, the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 3. What we see is that we have two binomials. It's a special case. When we have two terms multiplied by two terms, it is two binomials that are multiplied together. First stands for the first term in each binomial. So in x plus 2, x is the first term. In the binomial x minus 3, x is the first term, so that means we would take x times x, or get x to the second. The O stands for outer, the two terms that are farthest apart, the x and the negative 3, the ones that are connected by the solid line. So we would get negative 3x for those two that are multiplied. I stands for inner, the ones that are on the inside and closest together. In other words, the 2 and the x. So those when multiplied together would give you a 2x. And then finally, L stands for last, the last term in each binomial. So in x plus 2, positive 2 is the last term. In x minus 3, negative 3 is the last term. So we take 2 times negative 3 and get negative 6, and then add those results together. So here we see it. We've got our two first terms, our two outside terms, our inner terms, and our last terms. Now what we have is we have x to the second, which doesn't match anything else, but we have negative 3x and we have a positive 2x. Those two are like terms because if you cover up the negative 3 and the 2, they look identical. So we add those together and get minus 1x or minus x, and then negative 6 doesn't match up with anything. So our answer to this problem would be x to the second minus x minus 6. This method only works when it's two terms times two terms. At the bottom of page 4, you see stated exactly what I was talking about previously, that identifies why each of those numbers happen to be the first, outer, inner, or last. If the FOIL method seems difficult to you, or you would prefer to have one way of doing all multiplications, you can actually do the same problem using the long multiplication way. So we had x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 3. We can write one below another one and do this just like we did the other long multiplication problems. So here we're going to have negative 3 times positive 2 gives us a negative 6. Negative 3 times x gives us negative 3x. Then we go to the x, x times 2 gives us 2x, and notice how it lines up here properly. And then x times x gives us x to the second. We go ahead, we draw a line, we add up things that are alike, we have x to the second. Negative 3 plus 2 gives us negative 1x, and then we have negative 6. So as you go through these problems, you now have a choice. You can do the problems that are the two binomials by using the FOIL method, or you can multiply them the long way. Either way is going to give you the same results. FOIL would allow you to more quickly multiply things together after you've practiced it a lot, and it's a little bit easier to work things in your head. But knowing that you're probably not going to do a lot of these problems, pick the way that seems easiest to you or that you understand the best. On the following rest of this page, are there some problems that I would like you to stop the video and try to work these problems? And you have your choice. You can multiply any of these problems using the long multiplication way or the FOIL way, either one that is suitable for you. And it looks like I have two ones here. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I did. Sorry about that. And on the last problem that's here on this page, that problem you'll either need to do the long multiplication way or to use it using the linear method if you've had that before. So all of these are multiplications. After you've done these on page 6, you can go ahead and check your answers. So at this time I'd stop the video, try these problems, and then check your answers. Hopefully those problems went well for you on the following page. So if you'll take a look at your practice test, and again you might want to stop the video while you pull out practice test 3, on problems 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you can work these problems either the long multiplication or the FOIL way. The hints that I gave you for problem 8 and problem 10 are going to be talked about right here. On problem 8, where you have x minus 3y, you want to expand to the second power. You want to expand that to x minus 3y times x minus 3y and work it in the manner that we have previously. The same way with problem 10. And if you go ahead and read through here, there are some special cases that are in your textbook. We don't need special cases because we know how to work things. So instead of having a special way to work a plus b, the quantity squared, just rewrite it as a plus b times a plus b. Likewise with a minus b, the quantity squared, write it as a minus b times a minus b. There are problems using special cases. However, I would recommend that you go ahead and work them out the long way that we've talked about. At the bottom of the page is a hint that will hopefully help you work problems 39 and 40.